So I got a business, I've been in business a couple of years, and I come to you and say, Steve, I'm growing the business. Do I want to incur more debt, or do I want to sell some interest and bring in equity? Now, you're a banker. How do you guide me through that process in a objective way, even though you're somewhat inclined
Right,
and
yeah.
biased
Yeah.
toward debt?
Yeah, so Marty, what I would do is I would sit down with that person and map out kind of a reasonable debt load that seemed to be a comfortable level. And obviously there would be factors in there like what are the future revenues and cash flows going to be of the business, and what would be a reasonable, somewhat conservative set of assumptions on building out that, what's that going to look like on a pro forma basis, and what would be a reasonable level of debt, and then you ought to get that maximum level that's a reasonable amount, and if that's enough to fund the business, then I would recommend not selling part of the business. But invariably companies are on a higher growth trajectory and they need growth capital, and that leads them to having to raise funds that are outside of the traditional banking business. So that would be how I would go about doing it. And I would say different business models can support different levels of debt in terms of one of the proxies we look at is kind of like debt to EBITDA or debt to the cash flow of the company. And so different businesses can support different debt levels, and it's based on the stability of the cash flows. So one of the businesses we lend to that has a very, very high debt load is telecommunications and cell towers. So the cell towers are leased to the AT&Ts and the T-Mobiles and the Sprints of the world, and they have these contractual cash flows. So that business can support something like 8 or 9 or even 10 times leverage against that annual cash flow number. There are other businesses that are their customers and their cash flows aren't as contractual. They got to make the widget and sell the next widget to the next consumer. That's much different than the contractual cash flows. So that leverage should be much lower, 2, 3, 4 times. So it's all based on what that business model would look like. So and what the growth trajectory is of the business.